my beloved child. You did not arrive at this moment by accident, and this story does not open by chance, because from the very first breath of this narration, something unseen is already moving toward you, quietly, patiently, with a weight that has been growing for a long time. There are emotions around you that have never been spoken aloud, feelings that have learned how to hide behind ordinary smiles and harmless conversations. You may believe you walk alone in your thoughts, that your heart beats without witnesses, but tonight that illusion begins to dissolve. Somewhere behind familiar faces, behind casual greetings, behind moments you never questioned, two different hearts have been carrying your name in very different ways. One carries it with restless urgency, the kind that cannot stay still, that burns with questions and unspoken hope. The other holds it with steady depth, with a calm that has survived storms you never knew existed. Neither has stepped forward yet, and that silence is not weakness, it is preparation. Every pause, every delay, every missed moment has been shaping a truth that is about to rise. You may feel a strange pressure in your chest as you listen, because part of you already senses that something important has been circling your life, waiting for the exact moment when you would finally be ready to see it. There is a younger soul among these two, someone whose emotions arrived early and intensely, someone who noticed you before they fully understood what noticing someone truly meant. Their feelings grew quietly at first, almost innocently, hiding behind admiration and curiosity, pretending to be something small so they would not scare themselves. They watched the way you speak, the way you pause before making decisions, the way you carry both strength and gentleness without realizing how rare that balance is. For them, loving you became a lesson in patience, because timing never seemed to be on their side. They learned to hold back words that wanted to spill out too soon, to slow a heart that wanted to race ahead of reality. Every time you crossed their path, something inside them shifted, as if the world rearranged itself just slightly around your presence. They never planned to feel this deeply, and yet they could not stop it either. Their love is filled with longing, with unanswered questions, with quiet dreams they replay in their mind when no one is watching. And the most surprising part is not how strongly they feel, but how carefully they have protected that feeling, choosing silence over risk, hoping one day the right moment would reveal itself without destroying what they cherish. The other heart is different, shaped by time, experience, and moments that taught it how fragile connection can be. This person did not fall quickly, and they did not fall blindly. They observed you over time, seeing not only your light but also your tired days, your doubts, your moments of quiet withdrawal. What drew them closer was not perfection, but authenticity. They recognized something familiar in you, something that resonated with parts of themselves they thought had already settled. Their love did not announce itself loudly, it settled in slowly, like a promise made without words. They began caring in practical ways, in subtle protections, in moments where they chose your peace over their own desires. This love carries weight, responsibility, and an unspoken understanding of what it means to stand beside someone, not just admire them from afar. While the younger heart burns with anticipation, this one holds steady, waiting not because of fear, but because they respect the depth of what love can change. They know that once spoken, some truths cannot be taken back, and so they wait, watching carefully, choosing their silence with intention. What makes this story powerful is not just that two people love you, but that neither of them believes the timing is right, and yet time itself is beginning to shift. You may have noticed small changes around you lately, moments where conversations feel charged, where glances linger a second longer than usual, where silence feels heavier than before. These are not coincidences. They are signs of emotions reaching their limit, of hearts growing tired of waiting in the shadows. The younger one feels a pull they can no longer ignore, a sense that if they remain quiet much longer, they may lose something they have never even held. The older one senses that life does not pause forever, that some connections appear only once, and hesitation can turn into regret. Both are standing at invisible crossroads, each unaware of the other's feelings, each believing they are alone in their longing. And you stand at the center of it all, unknowingly influencing decisions, unknowingly becoming the reason two very different paths are beginning to converge. As this chapter closes, understand this clearly: nothing about this situation is random, and nothing is happening without purpose. Two forms of love are moving toward a moment of truth, and when that moment arrives, it will change more than just words spoken aloud. It will challenge assumptions, awaken buried emotions, and force choices that cannot be delayed any longer. You may soon feel a shift in energy, a sense that something important is about to be revealed, even if you cannot yet explain why. Pay attention to what feels different, to who suddenly seems closer, to who grows quiet in unfamiliar ways. This is only the beginning, the opening of a story that has been written slowly, patiently, by hearts that chose silence for far too long. What happens next will not be simple, and it will not be forgettable, because when two truths rise at the same time, the world never remains the same. The silence around you has started speaking in ways words never could, and if you listen closely, you will feel how everything is slowly leaning toward a moment that can no longer be delayed. The air itself feels different now, heavier with unspoken emotions, charged with truths that have been circling you like unanswered questions. What you do not see is how both of them have reached a breaking point in their own private worlds. Nights have become longer, thoughts more restless, and the idea of staying quiet has begun to feel more painful than the fear of being revealed. This is the phase where love stops being gentle and starts demanding courage. Each of them senses that something is changing around you, that your energy has shifted as if you are unconsciously preparing for a revelation. They do not know what the other feels, but they both feel the same urgency, the same inner pull telling them that waiting forever is no longer an option. The younger one has begun to struggle with their own heart, questioning whether silence has been protection or self-betrayal. They replay past moments again and again, searching for signs they might have missed, wondering if you ever sensed what they tried so hard to hide. Every small interaction with you now feels amplified, every smile feels like a signal, every pause feels like an opening. Their emotions, once controlled, now surge unexpectedly, catching them off guard in quiet moments. They imagine a future that feels almost within reach, yet terrifyingly fragile. The fear is not rejection alone, but the fear of being seen fully, of admitting that something pure and intense has been growing without permission. They know that once spoken, their feelings will change the dynamic forever, and yet the weight of holding them inside has become unbearable. Love, when denied expression for too long, begins to ache, and that ache is now guiding their steps. Meanwhile, the other heart carries a different kind of tension, one rooted not in impatience but in awareness. They understand the consequences of emotional truth, having seen how love can reshape lives in irreversible ways. Still, even with that understanding, their resolve is starting to crack. They notice how your presence affects them more deeply than it should, how your absence lingers longer than expected. They catch themselves making space for you in future plans they once believed were already complete. What unsettles them is not the feeling itself, but how naturally it fits into their life, as if it has always belonged there. They sense that if they do not act, circumstances may decide for them, and that realization is unsettling. This is not reckless love, it is deliberate, thoughtful, and profound. And yet, even the most grounded hearts reach a point where caution begins to feel like regret waiting to happen. What neither of them realizes is that you have already begun to feel the echo of their emotions. Perhaps you have felt moments of unexplained warmth, sudden nostalgia, or a sense that someone is thinking of you intensely without knowing why. These sensations are not imagination, they are emotional threads pulling gently at your awareness. You may notice changes in how people around you behave, subtle shifts in tone, hesitation in voices, or attention that feels more focused than before. These are the early signs of truth pressing against the surface. Love does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it announces itself through discomfort, through restlessness, through the feeling that something important is approaching even if you cannot yet name it. You are not being tested, but prepared, slowly guided toward a moment that will ask you to see more clearly than ever before. As this part unfolds, understand that the balance is fragile, and the next step taken by either heart will ripple outward, affecting more than just feelings. Confessions are forming in silence, courage is being gathered quietly, and timing is aligning in ways that cannot be controlled. You are standing at the edge of a revelation that will not arrive gently, but truth never does. When love steps forward after such restraint, it carries power, intensity, and consequence. This is not the climax yet, but it is the tightening of the thread before it snaps into clarity. What comes next will demand honesty, awareness, and a willingness to face emotions that have waited far too long to be acknowledged. A quiet shift has already taken place, even if no one has spoken a single word yet, and this is the moment where everything that was hidden begins to press forward with undeniable force. The space around you feels charged now, as if the universe itself is holding its breath, waiting to see who will move first. Both hearts have crossed a line internally, a point beyond which returning to silence feels impossible. What once felt like patience now feels like avoidance, and what once felt safe now feels incomplete. This is the stage where love becomes aware of itself, where emotions stop whispering and start demanding recognition. You may not see it yet, but decisions are being rehearsed in private, words are being tested in the quiet of empty rooms, and courage is being summoned in moments of solitude. The story is no longer about if something will happen, but how soon the truth will insist on being revealed. The younger one is now standing face to face with vulnerability, realizing that love without expression slowly turns into pain. They have begun imagining the moment of honesty, not as a fantasy, but as a necessity. Their heart beats faster at the thought of standing in front of you, of finally allowing you to see the emotion they have carried with such care. There is fear, yes, but it is no longer stronger than hope. They are starting to understand that even if the outcome is uncertain, living with unanswered feelings is far more unbearable. Their love has matured through restraint, through waiting, through watching from a distance, and now it seeks release. They are no longer thinking only about themselves, but about what truth might give you as well. Clarity, honesty, and the chance to see something real that has existed quietly for longer than you ever imagined. The other heart is experiencing a different kind of awakening, one rooted in realization rather than urgency. They have begun to see patterns they once ignored, moments where their concern for you crossed into something deeper. They recognize now that what they feel is not passing admiration, but a connection that has integrated itself into their sense of stability. This realization brings both calm and disruption. Calm, because the feeling feels right; disruption, because it demands a response. They are aware that silence can no longer protect them from emotional consequence. The idea of losing the chance to speak feels heavier than the risks of honesty. Their love is thoughtful, grounded, and aware of reality, but even grounded love reaches a point where it must step forward or accept the weight of regret. And you, whether you realize it or not, are beginning to stand differently in this unfolding story. Your intuition is becoming sharper, your awareness more sensitive. You may notice yourself reflecting more deeply on connections, questioning the meaning behind certain interactions, sensing emotion where none is spoken. This is not coincidence, it is alignment. When multiple truths move toward the same point, the person at the center begins to feel the pull first. You are being prepared, emotionally and mentally, to receive information that will shift your perspective. What once felt ordinary will soon reveal layers you never considered, and people you thought you understood will appear in a new light. As this part closes, know that the momentum is irreversible. The silence that once protected hearts is now suffocating them, and action is becoming inevitable. The next phase will not be gentle hesitation, it will be decisive movement. Someone will speak, someone will step forward, and the balance that has held for so long will finally break. This is the calm before truth emerges fully, and once it does, nothing will return to the way it was before. Something decisive has begun to stir beneath the surface, and this is the phase where restraint finally gives way to truth. The atmosphere around you is no longer neutral, it carries intention, resolve, and the quiet tension of choices about to be made. Both hearts feel it now, the unmistakable signal that time has reached its limit. Moments that once passed unnoticed now feel loaded with meaning, and silence has become louder than words ever were. This is not chaos, it is alignment. Every delay, every unspoken feeling, every careful observation has led to this point where love demands definition. You may sense a strange calm mixed with anticipation, as if part of you knows that something irreversible is about to unfold. This is the moment when destiny stops waiting and begins to act. The younger one has crossed an inner threshold, no longer debating whether to speak, but preparing how. Their fear has transformed into determination, fueled by the realization that honesty, even if risky, is the only way forward. They have accepted that love cannot stay hidden forever without losing its essence. Every memory involving you now feels like proof that their feelings are real, grounded, and worth standing up for. They are not driven by impulse, but by clarity that has formed through long reflection. Their heart is steady now, ready to be seen as it truly is. They understand that vulnerability is not weakness, and that revealing the truth may finally bring relief, regardless of the outcome. This courage did not arrive suddenly, it was built slowly, piece by piece, through longing, restraint, and unwavering emotion. At the same time, the other heart has reached a conclusion of its own, one shaped by wisdom and awareness. They have recognized that love delayed too long can quietly slip into loss. What once felt like patience now feels like an unfinished sentence. They are aware of the responsibility that comes with emotional truth, but they also know that denying it any longer would be dishonest. Their decision is calm, deliberate, and rooted in respect for both themselves and you. This is not a dramatic impulse, but a conscious step toward authenticity. They are ready to acknowledge what has been building beneath the surface, even if it complicates the order they once relied on. Love, when it is real, eventually asks for space to exist openly, and they are finally willing to give it that space. You stand at the center of this convergence, feeling the shift without yet knowing its full meaning. Your perception has sharpened. You notice pauses in conversation, changes in energy, and moments of intensity that linger longer than before. People feel closer, yet more careful. This heightened awareness is not accidental, it is preparation. When truth approaches, the heart often senses it first. You may feel drawn inward, reflecting more deeply on what connection truly means to you, questioning which emotions feel familiar and which feel transformative. This is not confusion, it is clarity forming quietly. You are being invited to see beyond surface interactions and recognize the depth that has been present all along. As this part concludes, understand that the waiting is nearly over. Decisions have been made internally, courage has been gathered, and the path forward is narrowing toward revelation. What comes next will not be subtle, and it will not be easily ignored. When love finally steps into the light after such long restraint, it reshapes reality. The next moment will bring truth into motion, and once it does, everything will begin to move faster, clearer, and with undeniable purpose. What unfolds now is no longer shaped by imagination or anticipation, but by truth finally stepping into the open, and this is the moment where everything changes its form. The energy around you has shifted completely, carrying a sense of inevitability that cannot be undone. Silence has lost its power, hesitation has exhausted itself, and what remains is honesty pressing forward with quiet authority. You may feel an unusual stillness, the kind that appears just before something life-altering reveals itself. This is not chaos or confusion, it is clarity arriving without warning. The story that once lived only in hidden glances and unspoken emotions is now demanding a voice, and once spoken, it will redefine the meaning of connection for everyone involved. One of them steps closer, not physically at first, but emotionally, allowing their presence to feel heavier, more intentional. Words may still be few, but the message is unmistakable. Their eyes carry what their voice has not yet released, and in that moment, you understand that something genuine has been waiting behind familiarity. The courage it takes to reach this point is visible in the way they hold themselves, steady yet vulnerable. Their love is no longer a secret locked away. It is an offering, honest and unguarded. This is not a demand or a plea, but a revelation of what has existed quietly for longer than you realized. With that realization comes a shift in how you see them, as if a layer has been peeled back to reveal something unexpectedly profound. Then, almost as if guided by timing rather than coincidence, the other truth emerges as well. It arrives with composure, with depth, with the weight of intention shaped by experience. Their expression is calm, but beneath it lies emotion that has been carefully contained until now. When they acknowledge what they feel, it does not shock with drama, but with sincerity. Their love is grounded, reflective, and unmistakably real. It carries understanding, patience, and the willingness to face complexity rather than avoid it. In that moment, you realize that two very different forms of affection have been moving toward you from different directions, each carrying its own truth, each asking to be seen for what it truly is. You stand at the intersection of these revelations, not overwhelmed, but awakened. What once felt like intuition now feels like confirmation. Pieces of past moments fall into place, subtle memories gaining new meaning. You are not rushed, and you are not forced. Instead, you are invited to recognize what resonates most deeply within you. This is not about choosing quickly, but about understanding clearly. Love reveals itself not to confuse, but to illuminate, and this illumination brings a quiet power. You begin to see yourself differently as well, realizing the impact you have had without intention, the connections you have inspired simply by being authentic. As this chapter closes, know this: the presence of two truths does not signify conflict, but transformation. The path ahead will be shaped by awareness, honesty, and emotional maturity. Whatever unfolds from here will be rooted in authenticity rather than assumption. This is not an ending, but a turning point, where understanding replaces uncertainty and emotion finds its rightful place in the open. What happens next will be guided not by fear, but by clarity, and that clarity will carry you forward into a reality that is richer, deeper, and undeniably real. Now the noise of revelation fades into something quieter but far more powerful, and this is the stage where truth settles into the heart instead of echoing in the air. Nothing feels rushed anymore, yet nothing feels uncertain. What has been revealed does not demand an immediate answer. Instead, it invites reflection, honesty, and alignment with what feels deeply right. You may notice how your inner world feels different now, calmer yet more alert, as if a fog has lifted and allowed you to see your emotional landscape with new clarity. This is where understanding replaces surprise, and where emotion begins to mature into wisdom. The presence of two forms of love is no longer overwhelming, it is grounding, offering you a clearer view of what connection truly means to you. You begin to observe each of them more consciously, not through imagination, but through how they show up in subtle, meaningful ways. One brings a spark, a sense of aliveness that awakens parts of you that crave growth, curiosity, and shared discovery. The other brings steadiness, a feeling of safety that allows you to rest, to be fully yourself without explanation. Neither is wrong, and neither is diminished. They simply represent different expressions of care, shaped by different journeys. In recognizing this, you realize something important. Love is not defined by intensity alone or stability alone, but by how it aligns with who you are becoming. This awareness does not create pressure, it creates freedom. Both of them, in their own way, sense the shift within you. They no longer push or pull, no longer seek to influence your direction. Instead, they step back slightly, allowing space for your clarity to form. This restraint is not distance, it is respect. They understand that real connection cannot be forced, and that whatever path unfolds must be chosen with intention, not urgency. In this quiet understanding, the dynamic changes. Love becomes less about pursuit and more about presence. The energy around you feels balanced, as if all parties are now standing on equal ground, waiting not for an outcome, but for truth to guide the next step. And within you, a deeper realization begins to surface. You recognize that this experience was never about being desired by two people, but about being seen fully. Through their reflections, you have been shown different facets of yourself, strengths you overlooked, depths you underestimated. This awareness carries confidence, not pride, and gratitude, not confusion. You feel more anchored in who you are and what you deserve. Whatever choice eventually emerges will come from this place of self-knowledge, not external expectation. As this part closes, understand that the story has reached a place of emotional maturity. There is no rush toward conclusion, no dramatic urgency demanding resolution. Instead, there is space, honesty, and readiness. What follows will be shaped by conscious choice, by alignment rather than impulse. This is the moment where love stops being a mystery and becomes a mirror, reflecting truth back to you with clarity.